What's going on, guys? Sticks here with the Token Minorities, bringing you another deck on Pokemon TCGO, and today, once again, I am bringing you another expanded deck, this time centered around the combination of Zoroark and Seismitoad. And before I get into the deck, just a reminder that if you guys liked this video or found it helpful, please leave a like, drop a comment, click that subscribe button, it helps us out a ton, and let's do more cool stuff for you guys. And as for the question of the day, Seismitoad is one of those cards that I actually found myself wanting to do a deck around, and you can tell how long it's been out of the meta by the fact that I actually want to do a deck around Seismitoad, because when it was in Standard, when it was basically running things in Standard, I hated this card. Every time I saw that I was up against it, I was like, ah, crap, this is one of those item lock decks. This is just going to be a game that's not going to be any fun at all. I just don't really want to play it. But lately, with all the new cards that have come out, with the way the meta has shifted, with the way that Seismitoad has been rotated out, it's kind of lost a ton of favor to where it's not even doing that well in expanded tournaments. I mean, of course, it still has a presence because, I mean, let's be real, item lock for a DCE is something that you can always work with, that you can always build a deck around and have a decent level of success at the very least, just because item lock is as powerful as it is. But my question of the day is, where do you think Seismitoad stands in the current expanded meta? AKA, do you think it is viable for strategies that you would bring to win a tournament? If you had to ask me, I would say I'm actually very unsure. I know that that's a cop-out answer, but item lock decks, like I said, always have a way of being somewhat successful, of having some form of success in tournaments, just because item lock is such a strong strategy. However, with Seismitoad, the fact that it is only doing 30 damage per turn isn't that good anymore, isn't sufficient anymore, because a lot of the meta has shifted to some very, very bulky Pokemon. Like, the Mons have gotten a lot bulkier. You don't have the Night March Mons that can get knocked out by 1 or 2 Quaking Punches and take prize while item locking, so you need to Quaking Punch for chip damage as opposed to Quaking Punch for prizes. And really, it's just a whole lot of... I don't think that Seismitoad is nearly as good. Well, obviously it's not nearly as good as it used to be, otherwise we'd see a lot more of it. But I just think that Seismitoad doesn't quite have a place in the meta anymore, just because item lock is... Well, the damage that Seismitoad does to accompany the item lock is not sufficient for even just chip damage anymore. I mean, you need about, like, 3 Quaking Punches without a Fighting Fury Belt or Choice Band, of course, in order to put a lot of Mons in range of Zoroark's attacks. I mean, apart from the basic... Actually, even some of the basic GXs, you need to have 3 Quaking Punches into a Zoroark full bench attack in order to knock them out, because that they have 190 HP. So really, I just think Seismitoad has just been power creeped really, really hard. But that being said, I'm still looking forward to playing this deck, as it's a very cool deck that was given to me by somebody... I think it was Facepalm Tree. It was one of the usual suspects from my Discord that gave me this deck list. And if you guys know where the original deck list came from, please comment in the comment section down below. Oh, and also answer where you think Seismitoad belongs in the expanded format in the comment section. Forgot to say that. But yeah, if you guys know where this specific list came from, because I know that they sent me a tweet that had this list, and I've been sitting on this list for a couple months, and I just forgot to write down where I got it from. I really would like to give credit to the person that came up with this list, so please, if you know where this came from, leave that in the comment section down below so that I can give credit where it is due. But it is centered around the combination of Seismitoad with the Quaking Punch and Zoroark with the Riotous Beating, and basically this is just another one of those decks where DCE is the only method of energy. You just have 2 things that are very splashable in DCE engines with Seismitoad and Zoroark, and even Mewtwo to a lesser extent, but also Lele, because I tend to forget that Lele can attack, but that's definitely not something you should do, because Lele is a very sufficient attacker in a lot of instances. But regardless, the fact that you're able to item lock and then hit for decent damage with Zoroark and Seismitoad is what this deck is all about. Just really item lock your opponent until you're able to get Zoroarks completely set up, to where later in the game, even if Zoroarks get knocked out, you just have such a good board built up, you have such a streamlined engine with multiple trades per turn, that you can just clean up everything else with Zoroark, and your opponent is still trying to get their setup. And that's really just what this deck is designed around, and it's a very, very cool deck that I've had fun testing out when I have. As for the numbers of Pokemon, I mean, it's very straightforward. Oh, apart from the strategy is very straightforward. Just Quaking Punch until you have Zoroark ready to clean up. That's just pretty much what it does, and you have techs to deal with different situations that might arise. As for the numbers, finally getting to that, we have 4-3 of Zorua and Zoroark. Just, I mean, you want to run a high number of those as they are the cleaners of the deck, but also you don't necessarily want to run a 4-4 just because that would kind of clog things up a little bit. 4-3 lets you have Zoruas out pretty consistently, but 3 Zoroark still lets you get plenty of Zoroark and have them when you need them, but also not be like, well, I just have too many Zoroark and I just can't work with this. As for the other mons, we have one Mr. Mime with the bench barrier so that things like Buzzwole, aka Buzzwole, won't be able to just pick off our Zorua with Jet Punch. And then we also have a copy of the Devour Light Giratina, so that running up against things like, even though Greninja Break isn't that strong anymore, in fact, it's fallen out of favor quite a bit, that is one of those decks that can really give this deck a whole lot of issues. So even though it's not very popular, we still want to run a way around it so that we don't just get beaten by it, because like I said, Greninja Break, sorry, not Zoroark Break, Greninja Break is a huge, huge issue for this deck. Greninja Break can just completely destroy this deck if they're able to get set up. So Giratina is one of those like necessary evils. Like, yeah, it does clog things up a little bit, and if Giratina wasn't there, it'd probably be a 4th Zoroark, but that matchup is just so in favor of Greninja Break that we need this to have any chance against it. 1 Mewtwo for X-Ball that hits for weakness. If Tapu Lele could hit for weakness, we'd be running a 3rd Tapu Lele, but not Mewtwo. But Mewtwo does hit for weakness, whereas Tapu Lele does not. So that's just another one of those things that you can slap a DCE onto and attack. And then 3 Seismitoad, because you want to consistently start with Seismitoad, have them when you need them, and maybe go through 1 or 2 before your Zoroark get completely set up. So we just want to have those when we need them guaranteed so that we can item lock our opponent. As for the items, we have 1 Computer Search as the ace spec of choice, just because this deck is all about setting up as quickly as possible and just Seismitoading until you get set up. So having the ability to get any 1 card from our deck just helps the setup go that much smoother. 4 Enhanced Hammer, because Night March can give this deck issues a little bit as well. And if you are, well, and not just Night March, but other decks that rely a lot on DCE, because DCE is actually become a main mode of attacking for quite a few successful decks, particularly in the expanded format. So running 4 Enhanced Hammer allows us to just be like, okay, you have DCEs, and not anymore. You just get no DCEs for the rest of the game, and so that's pretty nice right there. 1 Field Blower, because choice bands are annoying. Not so much Garbodor, but Garbodor is annoying as well, but mainly the choice bands, and then I guess also Garbodor. I didn't realize how many abilities you have. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 abilities that this deck kind of relies on. So yeah, Garbodor is annoying. I take that back. 3-4 of Nest Ball and Ultra Ball. 4 Ultra Ball is just the max number that we can run. I would run more if we could, but Nest Ball, this deck runs enough basic Pokemon. It only runs Zoroark as an evolution, so just being able to bring a basic Pokemon straight onto the bench is just another way. Yeah, you can't get Zoroark with it, but that's where the Ultra Balls come in handy. 4 Puzzle of Time, just because this deck doesn't have a problem with getting multiple cards in your hand. With Zoroark, you can consistently cycle through cards, throw stuff into the I almost said graveyard, this isn't Yu-Gi-Oh! Throw stuff into the discard pile while drawing a couple more to increase your chances of getting double puzzle, which is very, very strong for recursion. And speaking of recursion, 1 Special Charge, because this deck relies exclusively on DCE, so if we can't recycle our DCEs, we are in trouble. 4 VS Seeker, man, I've been doing this for a month, like over a month. I've been dealing with this new layout, but I really just don't like it. I like the cards closer together. 4 VS Seeker to reuse all of our supporters, and then as for these supporters, you have 4-2 of Cynthia and N. You might notice we're not running any Sycamores or Junipers. This deck does not like discarding cards when it doesn't have to. I mean, we're going to be discarding plenty with things like Ultra Ball and Trade, so the less we have to discard, the better, and this deck with Trade has ways of working around the fact that you get less cards off of N and Cynthia than you would Sycamore, so you really don't mind not having those 7 cards. You also have 1 Colress because you're dealing with a full bench more often than not, or having a full bench is what this deck strives for. So just being able to do that and then get a lot of cards in late game instances is very nice. 2 Acerola so that we can pick up damaged Zoroark and Seismitoad, reuse them later. 2 Guzma because it's Guzma, 1 Hex Maniac to shut off abilities if our opponent relies on them. And then 2 Team Flare Grunt because, I mean, this deck also relies on disruption, obviously. So with the combination of Enhanced Hammer and Team Flare Grunt, you can set your opponent back very far. 2 Fighting Fury Belts for the Seismitoad, give them more longevity early. Yes, you can run Choice Band if you want to just have more damage output, but the name of the game is just Seismitoad stalling until you're completely set up and ready to go, so the longevity is necessary even if you can't put this onto Zoroark. And then 3 Float Stones to have the free retreat off of all of our stuff, because none of our stuff you want to pay the retreat cost, particularly because we only have the 4 DCEs that we have. So yeah, that is the deck, and let's just go ahead and see it in action. Alrighty, we have found one, and man, that took forever. I know you guys didn't see it because I always try to edit out the wait times, but, well, in the lives, or in the deck videos anyway, not necessarily the lives, but that one took about 3.5 minutes. We're against Angry Sableye with it was like a fire, normal, and electric deck, and wow, that deck case, or deck box, sorry, not deck case. That deck box is from when was the update? Because I know I still have some stuff from before the update with that dual colored deck box. Because now everything's like shows the type and whatnot. They're a lot more intricate, I guess you could say, even though it's not really. Basically, they're just more complex, I guess is the word. But yeah, we do mulligan, unfortunately, and we start off with a Seismitoad. Not sure. Honestly, I have no idea what my opponent is up against. I mean, the expanded ladder did seem rather dead today, so hoping that I can get some decent ones. And unfortunately, it's a Kangaskhan Reshiram deck, which tells me that this isn't like a specific archetype. It's just kind of a expanded deck that my opponent threw together. And okay, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and nest ball for a Zorua, and then just get a fresh hand, hopefully get a DCE or something like that, and I do. Sand actually isn't bad at all, because I mean, I get the Fighting Fury Belt for the extra damage, I get the DCE, I have a Zoroark for next turn, so I mean, like, yeah, this is just going to be very straightforward. I'm just going to attack, go for a Quaking Punch early on, and that's really what this game is, or what this deck is centered around, just Quaking Punch until you can get a good enough setup in the background to where you can then steamroll your opponent. Like, basically make your opponent not be able to do much of anything, like just prevent them from using items until you get such a good setup that there's almost nothing that they can do in order to come back. So my opponent is just going to attach energy to the Kangaskhan. Kindred Kick will be a 3-hit KO at most, and ooh, we got the Team Flare Grunt coming out. So that is unfortunate, to say the least. Hopefully I can draw into a DCE. Okay, so let's go ahead and evolve the Zoroark, and then just N keeps my opponent from being able to have the cards in their hand, and then hopefully I draw into a DCE or something. I do not. But what I can do is trade, get rid of the Team Flare Grunt, hopefully draw into a DCE maybe. No, I do not. So what I'm going to do, actually what I should have done first is Ultra Balled, gotten rid of Ultra Balled to thin my deck out a little bit. I mean, ultimately I didn't draw into the Zorua anyway, so it really didn't matter. But I mean, I don't know, maybe shuffling the deck could have allowed me to draw into a DCE off of that trade, but regardless, I missed the Quaking Punch that turn because of the Team Flare Grunt by my opponent, but I will be able to get a second Zoroark up this coming turn unless my opponent disrupts my hand. We see the Kangaskhan get powered up one more time, and actually just Kindred Kick without going for... Yeah, just Kindred Kick without going for any items or playing any items or a support or anything like that. So that N must have really just put my opponent out of hand that was unplayable. Unfortunately, I do still have to N once again as I don't have another supporter. But, I mean, Nning isn't the end of the world, and hopefully still no DCE. Huh. Well, first things first, let's Ultra Ball, get rid of the Enhanced Hammer and the Giratina. I'm getting rid of my Enhanced Hammers because if my opponent is playing, like, Fire and Lightning, I really, really don't think he's going to be playing DCEs. I mean, if he does, then I'll just feel dumb. But let's go ahead and trade, get rid of the Mewtwo, see if I can draw into a DCE, and unfortunately I do not. I do get a Nest Ball, and this time I am going to play that before I go for a trade. Let's get another Seismitoad, and this way I can just go ahead and trade away my Seismitoad. I need a DCE or another Puzzle of Time, and I just draw into a DCE, so that is phenomenal. We can go ahead and play that onto the Seismitoad, and then Quaking Punch. This does two things. It not only locks him out of items, but also puts him in range of Zoroark. Next turn, what I can do is just Acerola up the Seismitoad. There's no way my opponent can KO me this coming turn, unless they play a Xerosic, or... Well, that's not going to knock me out, but it is going to delay, so that play of mine where I was talking about knocking out the Kangaskhan unfortunately goes out the window right here, because while he's still under item lock, he does not have enough damage for me to be able to knock him out with Zoroark, and I'd get another Puzzle of Time. So that's interesting. First things first, let's Acerola, pick up everything, put the Seismitoad active. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and put the Seismitoad active because, I mean, that's going to be the thing that's going to be hitting my opponent and item locking, so then let's trade. I don't want to double puzzle just yet. I want to wait to see what I can double puzzle for, if that's anything good, or if it's anything that, like, I need, because I don't just want to play both of them to play both of them. I only want to play them when I need them. And, okay, we get another Enhanced Hammer. Really no reason to play them. Like I said, I have these Zoroarks for later in the game anyway, so, so, like, getting the double puzzle back into the deck is not the worst thing in the world, as I will more than likely be able to draw into it, and then having those resources for later would be very beneficial. We see the Manectric come down. Is that Assault Laser could be annoying. Assault Laser actually could be very annoying. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'll play the double puzzle this turn. Yeah, because Kindred Kick, if he didn't get heads, I would have been able to live the Assault Laser next turn, but he did, so that's unfortunate. I actually top deck right into another Zoroark, which is absolutely beautiful. But because the Manectric comes down and has an energy on it already, I'm just going to go ahead and Acerola up the Seismitoad so that it won't go down. Basically, I'm just denying the crap out of my opponent in terms of getting prizes. And then what I can also do is actually attach to a Zoroark. I need 20 more damage. I need one more Pokemon, so I think that's what I'm going to use my double puzzle for. So let's go ahead and grab actually a Mewtwo, because I mean, I already have two Seismitoad. I might as well just grab those, and then the DCE. Actually, no. Let's grab a VS Seeker, because I have a Special Charge still in the deck, so I have ways of recurring the DCEs. I don't have ways of recurring my VS Seekers, so I'm actually just going to go ahead and do that. And then let's trade, thin out the deck a little bit more. Yeah, and then, I mean, I could trade again with my third Zoroark, but I really have no reason to. All three cards that I have in my hand are resources that I would like to have access to later in the game. Like, there's nothing that I'm just thinking, okay, I'm not going to need that. The fact that I do have the two Cynthias, the Guzma, and the VS Seeker Raw stuff that I'm like, okay, later in the game I definitely would like to draw into that when my deck is low. And now my opponent, unfortunately, is going to have access to items, but I'm hoping the fact that I have 3 Zoroark, 2 Seismitoad, and a Mewtwo set up, while he literally just has a Reshiram with 1 energy and a Manectric with 2, will be enough to where I just can blow through my opponent at this point. Like, I can just run through everything that he has, and he's just going to Assault Laser me for a whopping 60 damage, and that's actually great for me. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is trade, get rid of the Zorua, because I play 4 Zorua and 3 Zoroark. Well, I already have the 3 Zoroark. And, what can I do? So let's Field Blower, get rid of the Rocky Helmet. Then I honestly think just Cynthia. Just get a fresh hand, put that stuff back in the deck. Maybe I can mill through some more stuff with trades from Zoroark. The Team Flare Grunt is there. Let's... Do I want to trade and get rid of the Flare Grunt, or do I just want a Riotous Beating? I think, yeah, let's go ahead and just get rid of that, because that's one thing. Like I said, I don't really want to see that late in the game. Like, that's not going to be something that I want to see. And then, let's trade again, get rid of a Float Stone. I mean, yeah, I'm just trying to get to the best cards that I would like to draw into later. And now let's computer search just thin even more. That way my trades will be doing just amazing stuff. Like, my trades will be doing exactly what I want. Let's grab, I guess, a DCE. Let's grab a DCE so I at least have the attachment for this turn. Play it onto another fresh Zoroark so that I have the potential to Acerola this active Zoroark next turn when he hits me with Manectric again. And yeah, so that's going to be the turn. We are in a great position. My opponent can use items, but at this point I've denied him items for most of the game. 3 Zoroark setup. I'm hitting for 120 very consistently. My opponent has a total of 60 damage on the board. I've been able to heal off everything else my opponent has tried to do. And ooh, good play. My opponent's going to bring up the Seismitoad, so Assault Laser will be able to do... Yeah, Assault Laser is going to be able to do 70 damage. Or not 70, 120 damage and 2-hit KO my Seismitoad. So very good play by my opponent right there. This also prevents me from being able to do that Acerola play that I was talking about with Zoroark, just picking it up after it got 2 attacks off on it, put up a fresh Zoroark, play down Zorua, and then rinse and repeat. Just deny my opponent as many prizes as I can. And unfortunately, we are seeing my opponent start to get more items into play. The Reshiram is starting to get powered up. But at the same time, like I said, I think I'm still golden. I think I still have everything I need. I get a 3rd DCE. So first things first, I just have to... Actually, do I have to? Because if I get the Acerola... I can bring up... I can pick up the Seismitoad that's damaged. But I think the better play is just go ahead and damage the Reshiram. Put it, most importantly, put it in range of being able to be knocked out by a Quaking Punch. Like a Fighting Fury belted Quaking Punch, which I think will be important for later in the game. It will be important for finishing off my opponent, preventing them from using items in addition to being able to take knockouts. I mean, like, I'll take a 2-prize knockout while denying them items, and that will be absolutely huge. My opponent plays the Pokemon Fan Club, so I'm curious what they're going to grab. I mean, we've seen the Kangaskhan, we've seen Reshiram, Manectric. I mean, legitimately, anything my opponent does could... I mean, like, I don't think there would be a Mon that my opponent would pull out that I'd be like, oh, I'm surprised. But, oh, we see the Sigilyph. That is... Oh, wait, no. Sigilyph is just for EXs. Never mind. I was about to say, Sigilyph is potentially problematic, but the fact that it's only protected against EXs and not GXs, then we're fine. My opponent does go for the Glinting Claws, only gets 50 damage off on me, and what this does... Oh, that's beautiful. So what I can do is Float Stone up the Zoroark. Actually, do I want to? How do I play this? Because I can't Guzma. I can't Guzma to switch out. And I don't want to necessarily waste the Float Stone unless I have to. But if I Guzma to switch out, then the Manectric comes up. So I think what I'm going to do is... Because I know that I can get a Quaking Punch and knockout with Fighting Fury Belt and DCE. I just had to figure out the right way to go about it. So I think the right play is to just Acerola, Float Stone up to Zorua, because, I mean, I also didn't want it to be hit extra hard by... I didn't want it to be hit extra hard by Manectric anyway. And actually, I don't even have to attach the Fighting Fury Belt in order to get this knockout. So instead of letting Assault Laser do even more damage, I'm just going to leave the Seismitoad without the Fighting Fury Belt, Quaking Punch, knock out the Reshiram, and now I'm in a position that I pretty much win the game. I mean, I think there's Guzma still left in the deck, but I know for a fact there's 2 VS Seekers left in the deck, and with 3 trades, I should be able to win the game. I mean, even if my opponent Lysandered up a Zoroark, he would not be able to knock it out because he would need, like, Lysander and Kukui, but obviously you can't play 2 supporters in one turn, and the fact that he's item locked prevents any choice bands or anything like that from coming out and being able to do that additional damage. He does just go into the Mewtwo, that is fine, but I actually top deck into the double puzzle, like I said. I mean, I had 2 VS Seekers left. I had so many outs left in this game just to be able to win it. So what I'm just going to go ahead and do is puzzle, grab the last DCE, grab the 3rd DCE, or the 4th DCE, play that onto the field just to be like, hey, all 4 of my energy in this deck are on the field at once. Lysander, or Guzma up the Manectric, rather, and then Riotous Beating to knock that thing out and take the game. So, yeah, I mean, I know that that wasn't, like, the most competitive game, per se. I mean, my opponent wasn't using, like a particularly strong deck. I mean, my opponent still got things working out. But, yeah, we healed 0 damage, even though we Acerola it up, I think. Acerola it up almost 300 damage, I think, off of Seismitoad, so that was pretty cool. But unfortunately, it doesn't go down as healing damage. And yeah, I mean, honestly, like, even though it wasn't against a super competitive deck, this deck worked exactly the way it was supposed to. Seismitoad kept my opponent from playing items early game while I got my Zoroark set up, prevented them from disrupting me and preventing my setup, and yeah, took the game 6-0. So yeah, good first one. Let's go ahead and try to find another one with this deck. Alrighty, we found another one against Bob Loeb Law. I don't even know. 32 with, actually I was too busy trying to pronounce his name to notice what type of deck he was running. I thought I saw something with like a Psychic or something like that. And we do lose the coin flip, meaning we will go second. So, yeah, this will be interesting. Depending on what type of Psychic deck he is, I mean, Zoroark could absolutely go ham. And unfortunately, I start off with a Mewtwo and nothing else. Like, this is a very bad start. Hopefully, really hoping my opponent ends me. Because my opponent ends, then I have a good shot at starting off with something useful. If they don't, then, yeah, there's that. But regardless, curious to see what type of deck my opponent is running. Ooh, we see the Trubbish. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. This is a Garbodor deck, so if it's Trashalanche, that could be very problematic, as that could hit for a ton of damage. But then again, Zoroark should be able to resist and knock out. And my opponent's just going to... Is this like a Garbodor Mill deck? What? Mills 2, unfortunately, gets rid of an Ultra Ball off the top of the deck. That really sucks, because, I mean, that could have allowed me to draw out. But, well, I top deck into a DCE. Do I just win? Yeah, I mean, Trubbish is weak to Psychic, so I think I just win. Cool. Well, I mean, that's what my opponent gets for going for a... And I even had a DCE prized, so yeah, pretty lucky on that first turn. But yeah, I mean, that's what my opponent gets for going for a Disruption turn 1 against a Mewtwo when all I needed was a DCE to knock him out and win the game. I mean, it's very possible that my opponent didn't have much else, but I still would try to prioritize getting something else out. But yeah, so that was a nice, quick win. So there's game 2, I suppose. Let's go ahead and try to find a third one. Actually, one to finish this video off. Alrighty, we have found another one against Red Ghost with a Grass and Psychic deck. Oh boy. So that's immediately going to put Seismitoad in an awkward spot, because it will be, obviously, you know, weak to that whole grass thing. And I even start off with a Giratina, so that is not good. Crap. So, play the Giratina. And then... I mean, at least I have a Float Stone, at least I have an Ultra Ball to get something else out. Like, I can get a Seismitoad and a Zorua. Okay, so he can search for Spupa and Vivillon. He cannot play them. So that's good to know. I'm actually going to go ahead and grab the Zorua. play that down, just kind of save this stuff for later, because I mean, like, because I'm going first, I can be able to evolve I want to be able to evolve a Zoroark as quickly as possible, and let's play down the Seismitoad and call it a turn. So that was a solid-ish first turn. I mean, I would have liked to have one more Zorua. If I had gotten 2 Zoruas down, then that would have been like a pretty great first turn, or that would have been a good, very good. I'm not going to say great, because a great first turn would have been having 3 Zorua down. But getting 2 down would have been a very good first turn, and getting 1 down is a solid first turn. Like an acceptable one. And also the fact that I got a Fighting Fairy Belt onto my Seismitoad. My opponent actually is going to attach the energy, play the Seviper down to Hypnotoxic Laser. And Field Blower. Oh boy. Well, on the bright side, Spupa has 30 HP. So I can one-hit knock out that thing with a Quaking Punch. And we need to see, or not Spupa, Scatterbug. And, okay, he did not play another Scatterbug down. So if I get a Float Stone, I will be able to knock that thing out with a Quaking Punch. That will actually put me in a great spot. Like, that'll put me in a position where I don't necessarily think my opponent will be able to come back for that, because I did knock out something of his that was very important and obviously integral to his deck in 1 turn. So I could go for the Guzma and guaranteed get my Giratina out, but I'm going to make the risky play. I'm going for the Float Stone, because if I get that, I basically just win. And, well, lo and behold, we get the Float Stone. Let's go ahead and Nest Ball for another Zorua. I can play the Seismitoad down, and because I got that Float Stone, I'm going to be able to knock out the Scatterbug with the Quaking Punch. Both the Spupa and the Vivillon in his hand are dead. That means he would only have 2 cards in order to draw himself out of that situation, and I also had Item Lock. Alright, I had him item locked as well, so there wasn't much that he could do, and my opponent does just forfeit. So, yeah, going risky. One of the few times that I don't make the safe play, where I decide to go risky and it ends up paying off. So, yeah, able to take that final game, and unfortunately didn't get any like super competitive decks that we went up against. But I mean, I still got to show off what this deck can do, and I think I am going to end that here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And this is Styx signing out. Why not? See you guys.